What's up, IBL fans? Daxdleader here, and I'm doing my first coach interview for this season. Today we have here Ben, aka ShinySableye17, coach of the Baltimore Oriolus. Please introduce yourself.
Hey guys, it's Ben, coach of the Baltimore Oriolus, former IBL analyst, and official Season 5 sofa.
Indeed. Alright.
Hey Dax, what's up?
Hey.
Let's do this thing.
Let's do this thing. So, that's all you wanted to say about yourself, about your content? Or...
I mean, there's nothing really else to say. I'm a pretty stupid guy.
How about you give our fans, rather, a quick background of yourself as a battler, like how long you've been on YouTube, how long you've been playing Draft League.
Okay. I started Draft League like a little over 2 years ago. It was like summer of 2016. A buddy of mine went to Twitter and said, we need one more person for this league. Anyone want to join? I was like, you know what? Why not? Best decision I've ever made. I could give a very detailed, in-depth backstory of my Draft League history, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to spare you all the pain.
Alright, what are some of the big leagues that you've been in, something that people might have heard of?
Well, I don't know if you'd really consider these big anymore, but GPC and UBC I joined recently, and they used to be big back in the day, but they've kind of started to go downhill. That's why they let me in, because they've gone downhill, and they need bottom of the barrel. Haha!
I've been told by several sources that the GPC is like one of those really nice gateway leagues into stuff like the NPL, into stuff like the GBA.
Yeah, I think that is one of its primary purposes.
Yeah, and you think it still does that?
I guess I would. Well, I don't know about into leagues like NPL and GBA. Obviously, look at someone like Aster, and yeah, he's made it that far. But
Melon.
Yeah, Melon as well. But then you got all the new guys coming in. I mean, maybe you never know. Maybe one of the guys from like this season or last season will have an amazing career and end up making it to the big leagues.
Yeah. All right. Actually, on that topic, how far do you see yourself going in your Draft League career? Do you want to make the GBA? Do you want to be on the level of, like, say, the UCL even, like, in terms of popularity?
Good question. I would say the furthest I foresee myself going is, like, possibly NPL, maybe CPC. I don't foresee myself being in anything like GBA or UC. I highly doubt that, because, like, I generally don't do Wi-Fi leagues all that much. Obviously, I'm in IBL now, but I much prefer Showdown leagues to Wi-Fi leagues, so I could see myself being in something like NPL or CPC, maybe, possibly, someday, if I ever get much better for somehow, some way.
Alright, so, basing ourselves off that, you said you much prefer Showdown leagues to Wi-Fi leagues. Why is that?
I just feel like it's easier to play Showdown as opposed to Wi-Fi, and also because, like, I don't have a capture card, I can't jump my own mons, so, like, I have to suck someone off each week.
In terms of
Whereas with Showdown, it's just easier.
Yeah. In terms of your playing ability, though, do you think it's different on Showdown versus on Wi-Fi?
I'm not really sure, because I feel like Showdown is a little easier because, you know, you've got all the information right in front of you, whereas with Wi-Fi, you gotta pay attention, and I am not good at paying attention. And also, I've played 3 games on Wi-Fi for WPA before it crashed and burned. And with those 3 games, I went 1-2, which is kind of embarrassing for me. But I don't know. Maybe I'm better at Showdown than I am at Wi-Fi. Maybe that was just a total coincidence, and I'm not better at one as opposed to the other.
Oh, right. Now, I'm gonna bring it back to that question, but first I'm gonna ask you, what is your favorite playstyle?
I'll be honest, I'm not sure if I really found a specific playstyle, but, like, definitely not stall. I like using hyper offense, I'm just not really that good at it. So I'm not really sure how to describe my playstyle. I guess using mons that are powerful and can pick stuff off on a switch, like Rose Raid into Chandelier. I don't know how else to really describe it.
You mentioned Rose Raid and Chandelier before, like some top tier threats. Do you find yourself getting a lot of good value out of your lower tier mons?
Oh yeah, for sure. My strategy for drafting is like get the most busted mons you possibly can, and then get like the best steals you can, like the best low tier mons possible. Like pick up something like Tapu Koko, Celesteela if you can. Then like later on in the draft, try picking up something like Tangela, because I think that's a very good mon for its value. Like people seriously underrate that thing.
Okay,
Just
yeah. Like, I don't know when this is going up, but actually, I've done this in a past league. So, for the WCBL, I saw that Greninja Torrent was in Tier 3, and I picked it up around 3, which might seem early, but I think it's easily a Tier 1. Easily a Tier 2. Some people would even argue Tier 1. So, I totally see that. But you think that drafting mons that are good on their own and stuff that are like underrated is more important than team synergy? Is that what you're saying?
Well, not necessarily. Like I sometimes find myself picking a worse mon just because it works better with my team, which I mean that just kind of makes sense. But generally, I'll try to not pick up a grass type until I can pick up Tangela, because I really love Tangela and I think it's an awesome mon.
Nice.
But yeah, I would say generally try to, if you can, like try to draft mons earlier on that pair with lower tier mons that you can pick up later. Obviously, that's like in a perfect world, but that's what I try to do every time.
Okay. That's interesting. Right. That's cool, because I think that while what you're saying is by no means wrong, I think that a lot of people would not do that, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alright. So,
weird.
Anyway, considering you don't have a favorite playstyle, do you think there are any playstyles that are better on Wi-Fi than on Showdown?
I don't really see why there would be a better playstyle. Like, the only differences between Wi-Fi and Showdown in terms of the Pokemon are, like, level 50 as opposed to level 100.
I will give you one example. I personally think Stall is probably better on Wi-Fi, because there's a 60-minute timer.
Oh! Yeah, Wi-Fi does have the 60-minute timer, and the 60... Well, are we talking about the 60-minute timer? Like, where you can timer stall and stuff?
Yeah. Like, the battle, and it's not just like a timer per turn. I think, per turn you have, 5 minutes?
That seems like a lot. I think it's like more like a minute or two.
Yeah, and the other thing about there's this controversy in the NPL recently, right? Where Showdown's timer between turns gets smaller depending on how long you take per turn, right? And on Wi-Fi it doesn't do that, it's constant, but the battle itself can only last a maximum of 60 minutes.
Yeah. So
how do you think that's going to affect your playing ability?
Well, generally, I am a relatively slow player compared to most, but I certainly will not resort to timer stalling because, like, a bit of a backstory on me. I used to play VGC like a couple years back, like before I started Draft League. Then I realized I sucked at it and I stopped. But during that time, I realized that like people would use timer stalling as a legitimate playstyle. And I mean, I understand. Yes, it's technically allowed, but I feel like that's kind of, I don't know. I guess it's kind of scummy, for lack of a better word. I just don't think that makes a. But I mean, it makes sense that people would try to like timer stall as a way to win. I just don't really like that. Like the point of the game is to knock out all your opposing Pokemon, not to stall it out and just try to have more healthier mons than they do. Obviously, that's a matter of opinion, and a lot of people have differing opinions on that one.
Right. So, would you say that it's more fun to try to knock out your opponent's Pokemon?
Yeah, of course.
All right.
Like actually playing the game, not the clock.
Right. There are people who find stall fun. That's why I asked.
What? How? Who on earth could find stall fun?
Well, there's several videos about this, but like stall isn't as brainless as some people think.
Certainly not brainless.
No, right. So like preserving what you need to it's like in every game you need to decide what mods to preserve, depending on how you want to win in the end. And like with stall, you're making predictions pretty much every turn, unless you have some of those catch-all Pokemon like Chansey or something. But you still have to know what your opponent is going to click. Like, either they go, like, if they have a special attacker, you can't necessarily just switch in your Chansey, because they could always double into a physical attacker or something.
Yep.
That's obviously, like, a huge generalization, because there are physical attackers that can lose to Chansey, and there are special attackers that can beat it. But, generally, that's, I don't know, I thought that was just an example of the thought process right there. So,
yeah.
Let's move on to another question. Do you do mock battles, and do you think people should do mock battles?
Oh boy, I've got a very unpopular opinion here. I think mocks are overrated, and they're not really that necessary. Like, I haven't had a mock in maybe like a year or so, I don't really know, but I've been doing just fine without them. Like, I recently had a friend tell me that he thinks I'm wasting my potential as a battler if I'm not getting mocks, but I don't know about that, because, like, generally speaking, like I said before, I think they're overrated and not really necessary, because they don't really prepare you that much for what's actually going to happen in the game, unless, like, the buddy you're mocking with has a very similar playstyle and plays very similarly to your opponent, and also builds very in-depth and builds a team very similar to what's going to be brought. Because, I mean, if it's not, like, a similar team, and it's not a similar playstyle, how can you really call that a mock battle? It's just somebody playing with the same team, but different mons, different moves, playing the team differently, stuff like that. So, like, it's like two separate games. It's not really preparing you for that one game. And sure, they can be handy if it's like a really tough matchup and you want to see if a certain strategy could potentially work, but I don't really like doing mocks.
Yeah. Do you actually, coming off of that, are you more likely to do a mock battle if it's an opponent you've never played before? Or like, oh wait, you said you never do them anyway, so like, but I guess what I'm asking is, do you tend to join leagues more with people you know? Because, like, do you think that helps you do better if your friends are in the league?
I don't know if it helps me do better. I mean, I guess knowing how someone plays is really nice, and that lets me know how to play against them. Like, if I don't know if someone's good or bad, I can't really know if they would make good or bad plays. Then I could overpredict, and that would end up being not fun. Generally, I just join leagues with my friends because they're my friends and I want to play Pokemon with them.
Right, but then which I totally agree with that. But you said you could read them better if you know how they play, but then if they're your friends, then they know how you play as well.
Yeah, I guess that's true. That's a bit of a double-edged sword.
Yeah. Alright, yeah, I was just curious about what you thought about that. And let's move on to our final question here. It's gonna be, how do you think Draft League format has changed since the beginning of the generation? I'm not talking about the transition between Gen 6 and Gen 7. I'm talking since, like, the first Draft League season in Gen 7. Do you think there are some threats that have come into the light, some mons that have potentially fallen off, that were overhyped? Do you think people draft differently, like, prioritize getting certain kinds of things on their team? Is there something, like, are there trends that you notice every team is packing these days?
Well, I haven't seen a lot of differences in terms of, like, team building and team drafting and stuff between the generations. I mean, obviously, like you mentioned before, there are new mons, which means new threats and stuff. But at the very core of the teams, I feel like they're generally, like, the same for the most part. Obviously, there are more things you gotta prep for, like the terrains and stuff. Obviously, there are some mons that got a lot better with the introduction of Z moves and, again, terrains. But generally speaking, I feel like there wasn't really a huge difference in terms of team drafting and stuff.
What do you think is the mon, or, like, just name me as many mons as come to your mind, like, off the top of your head, that you think have changed drastically in viability since like, some Gen 7 Pokemon that, like, were either overhyped or underrated?
Oh, some Gen 7 mods that have like changed in viability
Yeah.
since the beginning of the gen. Well, I think we all remember Kartana at the very beginning of Gen 7. Everyone thought it was super busted and ban-worthy. Now, I love Kartana, but it is certainly not ban-worthy as it dies to a vacuum wave from anything.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
funny enough, I think in Smogon it's gotten better, but like since the beginning, and no one's really talking about it being ban worthy anymore. There were people who did say that, but like we're seeing the emergence of new sets, like with Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, Cortana gained access to knockoff. Did it have defog before?
I think it had defog before.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but I
Well,
think
knockoff is a big one, and I think the fact that it gets knockoff allows it to run a banded set in OU when it couldn't before. Like it used to be just Scar for SD. Now there's a banded set. Now there's like I think there's even a Life Orb set. But there you go. That's one mon that you, in your opinion, got worse, right?
Well, I wouldn't really say it got worse. It's just that it was overhyped, and
Right,
everyone
right.
thought it was this super amazing mon. Now, I love Kartana, but it's not that amazing.
Right. How about a
Yeah.
mon you think was underrated, and now people understand that it's good?
A mon that's underrated that people think is good now from Gen 7. I can't really think of anything off the top of my head that was underrated at the start. Now people realize is a lot better.
Well, how about not necessarily something from Gen 7, just a mon that this generation people didn't really love before, but now they do?
Maybe, well, I don't know if this is the best example, but Moltres comes to mind because obviously with its quad weakness to rocks, it's never really been able to shine that much. But I mean, it did get better with the introduction of Z moves because it's a pretty decent Z captain. So in that regard, I guess Moltres got a little better.
Yeah, with a lot more mons having defog now, mons that are quad weak to rocks
That's
all
also
of them
true.
are more viable. And Moltres tends to like not be in the highest tier, so if you're working with like a budgeted Z format, then I agree Moltres has gotten better in that sense. Have you used either of these mons, Moltres or Kartana?
I have used Kartana a couple of times, I think. And Moltres I drafted once, then immediately dropped because I had to make a lot of changes to my team, like before the season started. Poor Moltres. I've never used it before.
Alright, I think we are doing just fine on time now, so we're gonna end it here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to check out Ben's channel as well as mine, linked in the description. But until my next interview, I'll catch you guys later.
See you, nerds.